Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Monday Night Marsh. Great to have everyone here. This is our Works in Progress series that we've been doing for over 30 years, since 1989. We were just in a little back room in the Hotel U bar and still going strong. So welcome. This is our Works in Progress series. I think some of the most important work that we do, and we're glad to have you all here. Here at the Marsh, we're continuing to do present new work just about every of the week. We've got the Monday Night Marsh still going on. Tuesdays, our Wildcard Tuesdays this week, it's Barbara Lane Book Friends, a series about books and writing, poetry. That's Tuesdays at 7:30. This week, our Wednesday Solo Arts Heal series is performer Blake Sugarman with his excerpts from his show Prelude to the Apocalypse, which looks like a fantastic little piece of multimedia art. That's on Wednesday at 7:30. Thursdays, Stephanie's Marsh stream. She'll be talking to veteran Bay Area playwright Lynn Kaufman, whose show about Margaret Mead will be our featured show this weekend. Solo Performance Spotlight at 7:30. Friday at noon, we've got Candace Johnson's Fitness Sing at noon. It is a combination singing lesson and fitness section, if you can believe that, and it is wonderful. I actually checked it out for the first time last week. Candace is a really accomplished singer and a wonderful guide to this world. If you don't consider yourself a singer, I mean, Candace is such an encouraging, supportive mentor in this, and there's a fitness component to it, which is really wonderful. That's at noon every Friday. Friday nights is Bingo with Josh Kornbluth. Very well-known solo performer Josh Kornbluth, star of stage, screen, TV, and now Marsh Bingo. He's our bingo caller, so it's not necessarily what you expect from a bingo game. We run little contests with it, so this week it's going to be Beatles theme. Come dressed as your favorite Beatle character, Beatles song, and that'll be Friday. So again, all this is on our website, www.themarsh.org, probably where you got the link to this show. Also, we are doing all this now for free in this age of the pandemic. So if you can afford to support us through your donations through our tip jar, there's a link in the chat. You can find it on our homepage, themarsh.org. But thanks for being here. So I've said enough. I'm going to turn it over to our performers. We've got two veteran performers tonight. We're going to be starting off with Jerry Metzker, a veteran solo performer, writer, director. He's done so much great work, and we're glad to have him here. He's going to be doing his piece For Better or For Worse. And Jerry, I am going to turn it over to you. Take it away, Jerry.
Old enough to know better. That's what I said. And it was a kind of a cocky answer, I admit. But really, asking me how old I was? That's kind of obnoxious, don't you think? But then I started thinking, am I old enough to know better? And when? About what? So sometimes I do know better, sometimes I don't know better, and sometimes I act like I don't know better. Well, it's circumstantial, right, about the situation. For example, I know better than to put my hand on the coils of a hot stove, right? You can feel the heat as your hand's getting closer. The coils are kind of glowing orange, and I know what burning is. I know better. I also know better than to run nude down the street. Now, it's not like I have a terrible body, but nobody wants to see a middle-aged man running nude down the street. I mean, I have friends who don't like to be nude in the privacy of their own bathrooms. Running nude down the street? I know better. And I also admit it here, well, before you and God, well, and everybody, sometimes I don't know better. I make mistakes. I do the wrong things. I behave in ways or say something that's insensitive or crude or inaccurate or just plain hurt someone else's feelings. It's wrong. And I don't know better. For example, I go to the farmer's market every Saturday. I'm fortunate that I live in an area where I have fresh produce year round. And almost all the fruits and vegetables I eat are fresh and seasonal. Now, I'm not that healthy. Sometimes I eat chocolate cake for breakfast. But, and yes, I do know better, but we'll talk about that later. During this time of mask wearing and social distancing, you know, it's important that we all, where each of us has the opportunity, well, no, the responsibility to pay attention and take care of our neighbors and our friends and our colleagues, right? So going to the farmer's market has new rules. Well, there are still the old rules. And yes, we do have rules about how we should all live in society that are not steps to horrible oppression, right? And anyway, the rules are, you know, no dogs except for service animals, wear pants, don't lick the produce, wait your turn, and no shooting anybody. Basic rules. But there are also these new rules and to keep us all safe, like no touching the produce and wear a mask. So I'm a creature of habit. And when I like someone or find a produce stand or restaurant or shop or anything really that I like, I tend to be very, very loyal. So I got in line at my favorite produce stand, and the line goes around this little patch of vegetation in the park. There, you know, for social distancing, there are arrows and X's every 6 feet or so, but there was only one person in front of me, so I got in line behind this person. And as we're standing and waiting, I noticed that there was another person who was on another side of the patch of the park, also standing by the person who was first. Well, was she horning in on my being next in line? Oh, and then I thought, well, maybe she just didn't understand how the line works. Ma'am, the line goes around this way. Woof, 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 woof. The line goes around this way. She pulled down her mask. I can't understand a word you're saying. Besides, I'm next in line. My anger just popped right to the surface. But I didn't say anything. However, I sure thought a lot of things, like how many ways I could call her a Karen. I've learned that in a lot of these kinds of situations, they're just simply annoyances, you know, like road rage, right? By the time I get home or to wherever I'm going, I can't even remember them. So I tend to let them go. But we were both next in line. And so as I was ranting against this Karen in my mind, I was looking around and, oh, lo and behold, I noticed that someone changed the way the arrows in the line worked. And I, in fact, was at the end of the line, and Karen was next in line. And by now there was someone else behind her. So I kind of made my way sheepishly around the line to be third in line. Now, I was going to apologize, but I couldn't, because by the time I got up to the line, she had already moved up to the stand, and I was never able to do that. I suppose one could say that I knew better than to rant at this person, who was actually correct about the line. So I didn't rant, well, not out loud anyway, but I didn't know better that the line setup had been changed. Now I know. Well, not just for that line, but, you know, for all the lines in the farmer's market to always pay attention. I know better. In 1996, I visited friends who live in Atlanta. As part of our touring around, we went to this place called Stone Mountain. Now, Stone Mountain is a park, and it's a park based around this 1,686 foot high rock. And on this rock, there is a carving. It's the largest bas relief carving in the entire world. I was amazed. I took pictures. I bought souvenirs. I wrote about it in my journal. Now, the park was beautiful, but that carving, the picture, the carving is of 3 Confederate leaders on horses: Jefferson Davis, Robert E. Lee, and Stonewall Jackson. Now, I was taught in school that this was an appropriate way to express our American history. I was taught that even though the Confederate cause was wrong, that I should have compassion for the people of the American South while they were fighting for their beliefs, states' rights. And this was our history. Well, this much is true. Slavery, the Civil War, the Confederacy are all actual parts of history. Well, just like the Oklahoma City bombing. Remember the Oklahoma City bombing? It occurred on a weekday in 1995. And to refresh your memory completely, terrorist Timothy McVeigh and Terry Nichols filled a truck with explosives in Oklahoma City, and they, on a weekday, at 9:02 in the morning, they blew up the federal building in Oklahoma City. 683 people were injured, and 186 people, including 19 children in the building's daycare, were killed. Children's daycare, they were babies. It was a terrible, terrible thing. Whew. Now, as for Stone Mountain, after the murder of George Floyd by Minneapolis police officers in June, Stone Mountain has been in the news. It and dozens of other monuments and statues and tributes to Confederate leaders have been declared, and they were declared to be what they actually are: threatening and painful tributes to the villains who perpetrated and relished the horrors of and violence of American slavery. Reminders to every African-American person, every African-American citizen who sees them in their communities, in our communities, in our capitals, in Washington, D.C., that these villains still have admirers. These villains still have people who think nothing of posing a constant threat to our African-American neighbors, that you better watch out. You better behave. You better not get too uppity, because, we're here. I wonder if a lot of us forget our actual history, that the Confederates tried to destroy our country. The Confederates were bad people. Their action resulted in the deaths of 620 to 750,000 soldiers, not including all the civilians who were killed. And the Articles of the Confederacy were very clear that this was a military action to preserve white privilege so that white people could own and treat however they wanted Black people. Of course, the Confederacy lost the war. The country still remains intact, and human slavery became illegal throughout the nation. That's the history. But there were, and still exist, Americans who just don't like it. And so they constantly rebel against it. And they've been so persistent and so devious about it that the history has become, if not cloudy, then kind of skewered. One of the ways they did this, long after the war was over, was erect monuments, statues, and tributes to the Civil War villains as if they were heroes. The unhappy children, grandchildren, and descendants of the losers of the war, instead of being ashamed of what their parents, grandparents, and ancestors did, decided to be proud of it. Decided that they could manipulate the entire country with these tributes, these statues And the message of these statues, well, the message of all statues is to honor people and commemorate great things. So we ended up in our country with dozens of statues and monuments honoring villains who tried to destroy our country. One of these is Stone Mountain in Georgia. Let me tell you a little bit more about Stone Mountain. It was funded by the Ku Klux Klan. That carving funded, and it was part of the lost cause of the Confederacy movement. The park officially opened on April 14th, 1965, exactly 100 years to the date of the assassination of Abraham Lincoln, and about a year after the much contested Civil Rights Act was passed. So when my African-American neighbors shared with me how this monument and all the Confederate monuments and statues were received as constant threats to their well-being and livelihood, were meant to intimidate and threaten them and teach the false history that the Confederacy cause was a good cause, I was ashamed. I am ashamed. So I took a hammer and I got my souvenirs from Stone Mountain out and I smashed them. I had this paperweight that I loved and that I used, and I destroyed it. You know, destroying a plexiglass paperweight is not very easy. It's pretty tough, but I was determined. Before, I didn't know better. Now, I know better. Now, I brought up the Oklahoma City bombing because I don't know of anyone who would say that this was a great act. Like, basically everyone agrees that McVeigh and Nichols are villains and terrorists. Well, their terrorist act is recorded in all kinds of ways, in articles and documentaries and in books and museums. But there are no statues honoring these two. There are no monuments built to them. No, the group they belong to hasn't come forward to fund anything. And I don't think that anyone in Oklahoma City would stand for it. Now, having no statues or giant rock carvings to McVeigh and Nichols doesn't mean the history didn't happen. There are no statues to Benedict Arnold in Washington, D.C. There are no statues to Charles Manson or Jim Jones. There are no statues or monuments to Osama bin Laden, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, and their colleagues at the 9/11 Memorial in New York. And yet, we all know about these things. We all know about them. We all know the history. Obviously, I'm a white guy. White. And until someone who wasn't a white guy, told me in very simple and clear language that my being impressed or unconcerned about monuments and statues to Confederates supported an oppressive, painful, and un-American horror perpetuated upon my fellow Americans, I didn't know better. I fell for the faulty line that was all around me. Well, all around all of us. Now, I know better. Oh, earlier, I said something that may have struck some people in a way that they think might necessitate a response. Oh, that I eat chocolate cake for breakfast sometimes, I mean. Yeah, of course I know better. And I definitely know better than to eat chocolate cake and ice cream for breakfast, which I do when I have both in the house at the same time. Well, I justify it to myself. You know, you had a rough day yesterday. If you don't eat it, it's going to go bad. Well, it's Saturday and you've been through a very long week. It's your birthday. It's Labor Day. It's National Dog Day. It's Tuesday, so I eat the cake, sometimes with ice cream, even though I know better. I know better than to get only 5 hours of sleep. I feel crappy the next day. I'm irritable. I have trouble concentrating, all that. But sometimes I just stay up too late, even though I know better. I know better than to treat grown-ups like they are 8-year-olds. But sometimes I don't act like it. Sometimes I don't want to act like it because it seems to me that sometimes adults do act like 8-year-olds. And I think a lot of adults right now are acting like 8-year-olds. And when I see this, I just want to scold them for it, like I would an 8-year-old. Plus, I think of it as looking out for each other and our community and the world. Oh, but when you do this, it's often taken the wrong way. When it comes to being scolded, adults just don't like it, even if they know you're right. During this COVID-19 pandemic, there are people all over who are throwing tantrums, like falling on the ground, writhing, screaming tantrums about something as simple as wearing a face mask in a grocery store. Well, wearing a mask is frankly more life-affirming than not licking the produce at the farmer's market. However, some of these people equate wearing a mask with American slavery. Talk about acting like they don't know better. Anyway, I'm not trying to start an argument. I know better. Besides, what good would that do? Confrontation? It seems to me that most of the time when you do that, when you call out people for knowing better but not doing better, they just dig in. But sometimes I have to say something, even though I know better. What I know and what I need to constantly remind myself of is that I do know better. What I need to do when I want to talk is listen. Obviously, I love to talk. Sometimes I even like to hear myself talk. But let's remember that when we're talking, we're not listening. 8-year-olds. And I know that I can still learn. And I still need to learn. I love to learn. There are so many things in this world that I don't know that I would like to know. Well, I consider myself a student of Ireland studies. But Ireland has been around for a very long time. Its known history dates back to 3000 before the Common Era. That's 5,000 years ago. I don't know everything about Ireland, and I would never say that I know better than to say that I do. I think sometimes that I know everything about Angela Lansbury and Dolly Parton. But I don't. I don't even know everything about my own mother. And frankly, I don't think I want to know everything about my own mother. There are things that she can keep to herself. And I remember that we all learned things wrong. Not wrong things, although there is some of that, but we just received incomplete information or only part of the whole story, or the story told and recorded and repeated and repeated and repeated from one perspective. Or we didn't learn about other parts of the story, more important parts. The problem, the danger of this, is that we develop our thinking and even our feelings. We close ourselves off from what is really better, more accurate, more honest, more truthful, to accept the wrongness. So I listen and I pay attention and I try to keep my mouth shut, and I learn lots of things so that I do better because I know better. And when I know better, I think better, I behave better, I make a better difference. Oh, by the way, I'm 56 years old, and I get asked how old I am quite a bit because 3 days a week I do a pull-up routine in some bars in a park with a bunch of other guys who are uniformly much younger than I am. In my routine, I do 35 pull-ups. My first set is 12, and I do it with my legs extended in pike position. And the guys around me get very curious about that. So they ask me, how old are you? I tell them. Thank you all very much. Thank you for being here.
And thank you. Thank you so much, Jerry. We're going to have some time later on for questions from the audience after our second performance. So that's at the end of the show. So got any, save that up for the end. I've actually got a couple, and I'll also say chocolate cake for breakfast. Yeah, I'm good with that. You're not alone. So thanks, and we'll get back to you at the end. So right now, our second performer for the night is another veteran writer and comic. Kiki is here tonight with us with a piece titled "I Am Not My Hair." So I'm going to turn it over to you. Take it away, Kiki.
Thank you, David. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Thank you, Jerry. I enjoyed your set. I must say, I think that you're the first non-Black person I've ever heard call someone a Karen. So just for that alone, I appreciate you. As I said, my name is Kiki. One name, like Cher, like Beyonce, except on official documents, like checks, my driver's license, passports. Not that we can travel now, but that's my name. My pronouns, we have to say our pronouns now, are she, her, and the third one is slay. I got, not they, slay. I got that from Treville Anderson on Twitter, if any of you follow Twitter. And that's because I'm trying to stay cool and relevant and hip. But of course, because I use hip, that tells you exactly where I am. I'm older than Jerry. I'm a baby boomer. I'm a baby zoomer. I was born in 1957 in Manhattan, Kansas, the Little Apple, for those of you who don't know. It's also home of Kansas State. Born in 57, I am 63 years old. I am retired. I'm collecting Social Security. I do have multiple streams of income. I'm happy to now have Marsh, the Marsh stream as one of those streams as well, and just join you here tonight to tell you a little of my story. I also am very passionate about one of my sites, which is blackhistoryeveryday.com. I also write for Black newspapers, and I just got a temporary gig for the census. So for those of you who have not filled out your census forms and live in Alameda, I may be knocking on your door. Social distance, of course. Probably my most important job is that I'm a mother. I'm a mother of 2 teens, hopefully both of whom are watching on YouTube because, of course, they say, you know, Zoom is for old people. So I thank those of you who are joining us on Zoom and on Facebook. I have one teenager who's nearly 17. Will be 17 on August 28th, and a 19-year-old. I also have a stepdaughter who is 25 years old. I've been married 3 times. The first time that I was married, it was voided by the state of California. The second time that I got married to the same woman as the first time, I am now divorced from her, and we are parallel parenting the 2 teens. So now I've got married a 3rd time, and as they say, 3rd time's a charm. I got married in October 2019 to my third wife and my current wife and my last wife. And fortunately, we were able to go on our honeymoon in South Africa pre-pandemic. So I'm very happy about that. When I was in my 20s, this is about my comedy career. When I was in my 20s, I wanted to be a stand-up comic. And I watched a lot of people, and that's what I wanted to do. And I even took classes because I didn't know how I would do it. I took a class. I took one class. And it was mainly about how to use a microphone. And that's all I did. I wrote jokes. I actually wrote, those of you who are older will know, I wrote jokes for Joan Rivers. I wrote a joke for Joan Rivers. I saw an ad in the Reader's Digest. I actually sent it in. Joan, may she rest in peace, did not buy my joke, but it was good and it was a classic Joan Rivers. But I like my life now in my 60s. Rather than doing stand-up, I can sit down. Props to you, Jerry, for standing up with your performance, but I prefer sitting down and not leaving my home. Another Corona blessing. The most important part, I think, of my identity, even more than being a mother or a wife or a writer or an editor or a comic, is I'm a lesbian. That's right, a lesbian, a Black lesbian with a capital B. Just like now, AP Style says we capitalize Black, we capitalize lesbian. And by the way, I coined that word. If Tiger Woods can use Coblinasian, nods to him, he coined that word. I coined lesbian. Look it up. I did submit it to the urbandictionary.com. Hopefully they will accept it. I can't trademark it, but I did coin it. Just another nod to another famous comic who coined the word. Bill Bellamy coined booty call, okay? Wiki will serve that. That's my intro. Now, I am not my hair. Well, I'm a little my hair, but the title of this piece is I'm Not My Hair. And, you know, like most of you, a lot of you, particularly Black folk, hair has always been an issue. According to my mother, I didn't have good hair. She, like many Black mothers, not me, of course, was concerned about my edges, the nape of my neck. By the way, white people, you can look up, it's also called kitchen, but you can't say kitchen to me. Even in this era when many of you are woke and recognize that Black Lives Matter, you still can't say kitchen, but I just wanted you to know what I was talking about. Some of you do know what I was talking about. By the way, just a little deviation. I have two props for my act, one of which I decided to let go of, and it's an homage to Whoopi Goldberg, who was one of the people that I studied. And if any of you remember seeing Whoopi Goldberg do her act, and she actually started in Berkeley, she used to talk about hair, and she used to wear a towel around her hair. So my prop was this, which I borrowed from my wife, but I decided not to really use it because it looked too KKK-like. But this was going to be my prop for it. And then you'll see my other prop, which I think is very effectual. But back to my hair and my mother. Basically, my mother was insistent on making sure my hair was perfect, like a lot of Black mothers, used a straightening comb, sent me to the beauty shop, and I'll just show the other one. Okay, so this is me, hopefully no too much reflection, with my hair straightened and my Mamie Eisenhower bangs. Yes, my Mamie Eisenhower bangs when I was a little girl, and probably one of the last times I wore a dress as well. But kitchen tight, you can't see it as close up, but trust me, Shirley Ann Thompson, my mother, was having my kitchen tight. I went from having my hair straightened to, many of you remember, and some of you still may have, going to the beauty shop and getting a permanent. Now, a permanent, I see heads nodding, a permanent was not permanent. It didn't last very long, but if you think of the hairstyles of James Brown and Al Sharpton, those were permanents. Al Sharpton's still with us. I think still rocking a little permanent, but unfortunately, their hairdos were better than mine as a permanent. Quite sad. Then it wasn't enough to have my kitchen controlled by the permanent. My mother decided I should wear headbands. So I started wearing headbands. My headbands matched whatever outfit that I had. Another disaster, because unfortunately, in reflection, I looked more like LaToya Jackson. Remember, LaToya went through the headband phase, or even worse, John McEnroe. Really, really horrible. Then I decided to take control of my hair and do it myself, and I rebelled against my mother. Of course, I was 17 years old and had left home, so wasn't in her control anymore. Probably in reflection, the most essential thing and person that I channeled now, it didn't happen then, was India Ari, who I took the title of my my performance from, and many of you know I am not my hair. So channeling her, quoting her, and no, I do not own the rights to this music, but little girl with the press and curl, which was me. At age 8, I get a Jerry curl. 13, I got a relaxer, also a permanent. I was the source of so much laughter. At 15, when it all broke off, 18, and I went all natural. Now, I might add, at that time, I had the best and the tightest Angela Davis fro ever. It was masterful. I looked in the mirror, and for the very first time, I said, hey, I am not my hair. I am not the skin. I am not your expectations. No, I am not my hair. I am not the skin. I am a soul that lives within. Good hair means curls and waves. Bad hair means you look like a slave. It's time for us to redefine who we be. You can shave it off like a South African beauty, or get on lock like Bob Marley or Kiki. You can rock it straight like Oprah Winfrey. It's not what's on your head, it's underneath. And say, hey, does the way I make my hair make me a better person? Does the way I make my hair make me a better friend? Does the way I make my hair determine my integrity? I am expressing my creativity. My mother also told me that I wouldn't get a job with my afro. She told me I wouldn't get a job with braids. She told me I wouldn't get a job with dreadlocks. And in the song, I Am Not My Hair, Akon talks about how corporate wasn't hiring no dreadlocks. However, in 2002, with my locks, I got a job at CBS in San Francisco. Many folks, even then, advised that I cover up my locks and wear a wig. I did not, and at the time, I also had my nose pierced and wore a nose ring and weighed nearly 500 pounds. Quite frankly, I don't think it would have been my hair that prevented me from getting the job at CBS. I'm happy to say that the lesbian got the job. At the time, my mother was not speaking to me, and we had not spoken for decades because she was homophobic and didn't think that I should have come out at age 19. But I'm happy to say that the lesbian triumphed and my hair triumphed. Now we're back to today. As I mentioned, I have 2 children, 2 teenagers. My 17-year-old son, who is hopefully watching on YouTube, now comments on my hair and says, top 10 worst haircuts. I let him know it's not a haircut, it's a hairstyle, and I'm not my hair. And I would add about being a lesbian, it's not a lifestyle, it's my life, it's my life now. Thank you. I want to thank the Marsh. Thank you, David. I want to especially thank Tony and Marga for suggesting that I come to the Marsh. Tony's watching. I want to thank RJ for helping me with writing my play, and Karen Williams to thank for helping me write my comedy and my classmates. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Kiki. Thank you so much. Leave your camera on, don't unmute yourself. And I'm Jerry, I'm going to ask you also to unmute, and we'll go to speaker view here. Thank you both. Again, so for anyone in the audience, if you have questions you'd like to throw into chat, also anyone watching on YouTube Live, I'll check the chat there as well. So I had this thought cross my mind, Jerry, during your piece, and again, actually during yours, Kiki. As Jerry, in your piece, we're kind of working through kind of the way in your mind you've written kind of what society is and how it works and how you react to that. And I thought, is this kind of about expectations, your expectations of society, society's expectations of proper behavior? And it strikes me listening to both your pieces, Jerry worked quite a bit with Theater Rhino, and Rhino's a company with a mission, and I think in my mind, part is about creating, perhaps altering, perhaps modifying expectations. Do you have any thoughts about that, or your work in theater in general? And Kiki, with your work comic, same question, but I'll start with you, Jerry.
So basically, I think of the theater as like the ideal place to tell stories. And I think it's a grave danger for all of us when only a select group of people have their stories told. Now, I take it very seriously that, again, and I say it, that, I am obviously a middle-aged white guy. I'm also gay, but I love other people's stories. And that's why I think listening is so important. And I think, unfortunately, because we have dominant cultures, and we even have dominant like neighborhood cultures, right? Subcultures, where if you live in a certain neighborhood, you only hear certain kinds of stories. And I think that actually limits us. And when I say I love to learn and want to learn and know more, I want to know more about all kinds of people, and I want to learn all kinds of stories so that I'm a better person in the world. So it is hard because we do have a dominant culture, and our dominant culture is fading. I believe historically is fading, and it's fighting tooth and nail because it has this great fear. And it's people, it's not a culture, it's people, that we have a great number of people who are afraid that if other people are the same as they are, thought of as the same as they are, then they will be less. And that's so awful to me. I think that, no, you're not less. It's other people are just as good as you, right? It's like, why do you have to be better? And I never think that we all should be better, but we are really fighting against that in our culture right now. And, we have two horrible things going on. I work in homeless services as well, so I really think we have three horrible things going on. Homelessness, we have the COVID-19 virus, and we have this sudden, like, not sudden, but this growing, burning thing, like, people aren't equal in the country that's about equality. That's wrong. So before like I said, sometimes I love to hear myself talk, so I'm going to stop.
Kiki, over to you. Same question about expectations, how they've changed, your role perhaps in changing that, and I think this may refer directly to your website, Black History Day. So maybe if you could talk a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, first of all, about the website, blackhistoryeveryday.com. About 3 years ago, after hearing people talk for a long time about how they were not satisfied with Black history being 1 month and having the same facts regurgitated over and over again, and myself having that, and hearing people say Black history should be every day, I decided to start a website And amazingly, the domain blackhistoryeveryday.com was available. So I began to put up different facts, a fact every day, as the name implies, and diverse facts. And not just facts about civil rights, although there are some civil rights facts, and not just facts about Black folks living in the United States, and not just facts about straight people. Really diverse in terms of global and all of Africa and the African diaspora, and to know that there were Black folks in Sweden, and there were Black folks in Germany, there were Black folks everywhere. In Asian Pacific Islander Heritage Month, I did every day a different fact about someone who's Black and Asian. For Latinx folks, I did, and I thought I had coined this term, but I unfortunately have not, Latinx. I did folks who were both Black and Latinx. That became a passion of mine, and it's also something that I developed as an Alexa app too, so you can ask Alexa to enable Black History every month, and Alexa will read you those facts. And for me, it was also a learning device too. I was just amazed at the things that I didn't know beyond the first. I just learned about this young woman the other day who was the first Black woman to become a professional golfer on the LPGA, 26 years old. So that's what it was, and celebrating things, and yes, acknowledging other parts of our history. Yes, there is something on Emmett Till. Yes, there is something on George Floyd. But yes, there is also something on Breonna Taylor, and there is something on the efforts that Oprah has done to lift up the inequities against Black women as well. And I listed this year there have been a number, at the last count, I think 24 transgender women killed in the United States by police or other violence, and all of them have been Black transgender women. So recognizing and lifting that up. There was a Black transgender woman on the South African continent who got elected to office. So that's my passion about Black history every day. In terms of my in terms of performing and theater, I think on some levels I have recognized theater as a valuable tool and a platform, but somehow I didn't think it applied to me, even though I had seen the work of Anna Devere Smith or Elaine Stritch, or at the Marsh I saw Robert Townsend. Since the Marsh has been streaming, I watched Marga Gomez in conversation with Stephanie Weissman, and I think that's when I really began thinking, but it really wasn't until Marga actually sent me a note saying, you should contact Alexa and put up your work in progress for the Marsh. And then I really began thinking about it, using the theater, particularly during this COVID and the pandemics plural are certainly horrible, but yet there are blessings in them as well. And I see this and the access of theater both through Zoom and YouTube as one of those blessings.
My unmute wasn't working. Well, and we're glad you could join us here with this exploration, both of you. And I've put the link to your website up there in the chat.
Thank you.
I took a quick glance at it earlier tonight, and there was a Medici, a mayor of Florence.
Yes.
Who they nicknamed the Moor. That just made me.
Holy cow! Literally just found out about that in the last week. I was reading an article in the Wall Street Journal, and it was about this Black guy in Florence who hosts a Black Florence Month. And so he talks about all the Black people in Italy, and particularly in Florence, and talked about this ruler in the 1500s.
Wow. Wow. So before we go, I wanted to ask you both, and I'll bounce back to you, Jerry. You have projects or anything you're doing that you'd like to plug, or ways that we can keep up with your work? Any plans for the piece you've done tonight, or anything else that you may be working on?
Well, I have tended to, since we're all sheltering, and I have a very active theater life. I'm always working on something and going to the theater, so it's pretty stifling. So I just sort of create these little pieces and I put them on my YouTube page. So the next one, I'm a trapeze artist, and I created a drag character to perform on the trapeze, and she doesn't like to shut up. So I've already done one piece for her since we've been sheltering about how she's stuck in this old guy's apartment, basically my apartment. And now she's going to do another one about, like, oh my God, this is going on forever. So that will be coming up probably next month. So, and then that will just be posted on YouTube or Facebook and those places. And I'm always working on some kind of project or other. I mean, a lot of people know I work with John Fisher quite a bit, and he's doing a piece a week. And I've given him notes and things on some of them, and overall general notes. So there are those things going on for me. Thank you for asking.
And I just put up the link to your channel, your YouTube channel, in the chat. I didn't realize you had a YouTube channel. I, for one, will be certainly checking out Fox in Socks.
Yes, that was, I took all my trapeze characters and I read the book. So they all read a different part. So that's kind of fun.
Fantastic.
And trapeze stuff is on there. So if you watch it in sequence, you can watch me, and I started when I was 50. So you can watch how I progressed over the last 5.5 years. So
I look forward to that. It was fascinating to hear about your trapeze work. So that's great. So the link is there for anyone. Kiki, what's anything up with you or plans for this?
Of course. And first of all, Jerry, that sounds fascinating. I'll definitely check that out. Thank you. Check out your YouTube channel. Yes, blackhistoryeveryday.com currently has 2,000 facts on it, so feel free to binge that, and I'm adding a new fact every day. If you have an Alexa, add that. I also have another site where I post a lot of my writings called kikipost.com, plural. I also have a podcast on Anchor FM called Kiki Podcast. I'm on YouTube. I'm not on YouTube. I am on Facebook. Please feel free to friend me on Facebook. You can follow Black History Every Day on Facebook. You can send me a note. I'd love to be in contact with folks, and I love people to continue to follow me. And yes, I'm continuing to work on my one-woman show. I liken it to, I'm very also influenced by Lily Tomlin and the work that she and Jane Wagner did. And as I mentioned, Anna Devere Smith, and going back like an Elaine Stritch, Rita Moreno, all of these people have really influenced how I am. And the comedians, Karen Williams, Marga Gomez, Whoopi Goldberg, in particular, Marsha Warfield, Jerry Seinfeld, and probably the comedian that has influenced me the most is Bob Newhart, who's still with us. So I'm continuing to work on my my one-woman show. I did see on the Marsh's website, I think, that there is another a group of solo performances coming up in October. So I want to apply for that. So that's where you can hopefully see me next. But if you follow me on Facebook, or if you follow blackhistoryeveryday.com, I also have an authory page, which is just, I do use my last name, authory.com/Kiki Monifa, where I put all of my writings there. I'm easy to find. Thank you for asking, David.
Awesome. Well, thank you both, and thank you, Kiki, for mentioning, by the way, the solo festival, online solo festival the Marsh will be doing. We're currently taking submissions. That will be in October. So out there in the audience, if you're interested, that information is on our website. We are taking submissions for future Monday nights. Alexa, our Monday night program director, could not be with us tonight, so I'm subbing for her. But this is every Monday night. We're accepting submissions. So, Jerry, Kiki, thank you so much for being with us. Thank you in the audience for coming. Again, our tip jar is on our homepage. If you can support us one way or another, we look forward to seeing you back. Lots of great stuff going on here. And we'll hope to hear from you both. Thanks very much for being here. Thank you, everyone. Good night.